So at this point, you should have received the tutorial planner, right? If not, I'll make sure that, if not, let me know and I'll make sure to send it to you. So that's another tool that we give so that people are focused. They stay focused with their content. So basically, the first thing is the main subject, right? What is about, what do you want to teach, right? And one trick that I like to tell people is that keep that subject line, the main subject, to less than 4 words. If you have more than 4 words, then refocus, right? Again, this is all about staying focused, right, on the message, staying focused on the subject. So less than 4 words. I mean, there's obviously exceptions, but this is what I found to be a good starting point. So viewer benefits. So in the viewer benefits, section or field, I try to be as specific as possible, because this will help you with research. So for example, if you say as benefits, the viewer benefits, you say people who have never rigged anything in their career will have a basic understanding of the rigging concept used in a production environment. So this tells you a lot, right? It tells you, obviously there's about rigging, people who had never rigged anything before. So maybe once you want to promote your content, you can promote it to schools, and et cetera, right? So be as specific as possible, because in your case, it will give you a lot of information to what to do when you want to promote your course. And then, audience, again, be, tell what your audience is. Is it students? Is it, try to be as specific as possible. And one more thing about the viewer benefits, it's always good to be very specific, because when you start, we'll talk about this a little bit in a few slides, but it's always good to be focused, so that when you create your description, when you create, if you want to put a post in the Facebook groups, you know exactly what the benefits are. Like if you were very specific here, you can literally take that text and paste it there. I mean, it should be that much specific. So that's good. So audience, again, be very specific. Are you targeting is kind of bad word in my opinion, but I used it. So is your audience students? So again, be very, very specific. And then the takeaways. So the takeaways means, what are the people going to learn after they watch your tutorial, right? So here I say, try to complete the sentence, my audience will be able to, and then you say specifically what they will be able to, right? So in my rigging tutorials, I try to structure it in such a way that at the end of it, like if people really watch really well all the tutorials, they will be able to, my audience will be able to rig in a production environment, right? And that is my statement, and obviously make sure that your content does provide that kind of information. But that's in the tutorial planner, in the takeaways, try to start your sentence with, my audience will be able to, and whatever they will be able to do after they watch your tutorial. So this is about the tutorial planner. So the other thing is mark your calendar. So making a content, again, you can start very small. You can start with just a simple HTML text tutorial, right? But if you are making a tutorial series, kind of like what Steven has done, there's a lot of work involved, right? Probably many weeks. And then if this is your first time, probably a couple of months, right? Not working every day, of course, but a couple of months of like, every other day you work on this, right? Because it takes time, right? So because of that, I would suggest to look at your calendar and say, okay, I'm going to work from the beginning of September to the end of October, right? So those are that period of time. And this came up, like, if you have to think about if Game of Thrones is on, don't do it through doing Game of Thrones, because you want to watch Game of Thrones, right? So anyway, So mark your calendar, look at your calendar. If there is anything that you really want to, that is going to take you away from your, from being focused on making a tutorial, move it to another period of time, right? So that's why mark your tutorial. Look at your calendar and mark your calendar. So the other thing that I like to tell people is that tell your friends that you're about to making this course, because that's usually, I mean, I know that works for me. Is going to keep me honest, right? Because making a tutorial is time consuming. So if I tell people about this, about that I'm making this tutorial, I find that people start to ask me, so how is the tutorial going, right? And that keeps me motivated, and so that's great. So the other important thing that I always mention is that you know, if you do live with somebody, and if you're married, children, talk to your spouse, talk to your roommate about the fact that you're going to do this, because you know, maybe, you know, if you're married with children, you know, you have to dedicate some time to the tutorial, right? So it's better to let them know, okay, I'm going to be dedicating this time here. But it's also true that if you are either married with children, or if you have a roommate, it's also important to let them know, so that they know that at some point you're going to start recording, and so there's no noise in the room, etc. So very important. So this is the first part about planning. So the other thing now is to talk about the course outline. This is probably, in my opinion, this is probably the most important thing about your entire production of it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's really like you take everything that you have in your brain and you dump it on paper. And the very powerful thing is that you can switch things around, right? You have a bullet point in Word, it's super easy to move things around and everything. So this is the time where you spend enough time to figure out what is the structure of my tutorial. So we start obviously with you know, the subject. It could be your title, right? That could end up being the title of your tutorial. And then write down the main large topics, right? So these topics usually end up becoming chapters in your tutorial, right? So again, you were talking about a single tutorial here. So if you have a title, then you talk about the large main topics, which become chapters. And then you take these these large topics and you break it down into smaller ones, and these become the actual videos, right? So what you write at this level is what you are writing, basically the titles of what your videos are going to be named. And if you decide to, so usually we say that a video should be between 5 and 10 minutes long. 10 minutes is already longish. So in my opinion, the best time, the best length for a video is between 5 and 7 minutes. So if you start thinking about this video and you see yourself talking more or longer about this video than in one video, than in 5 to 7 minutes, break it down into 2, right? It's totally, it's perfectly fine. And optionally, in the outline, you can write an intro and outro for each video. So I am not a native English speaking, right? English is my first language, is my second language. So for me, I really have a hard time starting a video and ending a video, right? So when you start, you go like, okay, welcome. And then at the end, you never know how you finish, right? You say, I don't know, like it's very funny. Sometimes I say funny things. So because of that, in my outline, a lot of times I write for each video, I write a little intro and a little outro, so that when I'm recording, I can read that and then go into doing the demo for that video. And then when I know that I'm about to end, my eyes go to the outro and read that, or memorize it, whatever works better for you. So that way the video has a nice flow, it's self-contained, it's nice and one other thing about the length of the video is that when you make a video that is 5 to 7 minutes long, this plays a huge role later on, because if you do make a mistake that you want to correct, if your video is very short, it's very easy to make again, right? Super easy. But also it plays a huge role for people watching, because when they are watching a big tutorial, if they watch it and they like it, and then they apply what they learn, but then if they remember that you talked about a specific subject, it's much easier for them to remember what video it was if the video is short, because it's going to be a lot more focused. And so if they open that video, it's also very easy for them to scroll between 5 minutes, instead of scrolling between 20-30 minutes of video. So finding information is a whole lot easier for people, and so they like the video more, so you help them more. So and then the other thing is a cross-reference. Once you're done with your outline, cross-reference your outline with your research and try to answer these questions. So is my course addressing my audience's pain points, right? So go back and say, do I have a video that specifically addresses what the audience main point is, or what people liked about those tutorials that are out there? And then do some of my videos titles have those are the same keywords that I found, right? This is very important, because if you want to be found by Google later on in searches, that plays a huge role. So make sure to write in your title, in your description, in the name of your videos, try to have as many of those keywords as possible. And then here I have an example of an outline. This is the outline that comes from my rigging tutorial. So as you can see here, I have the title, rigging, character rigging techniques. Then the chapters, or the big topics, which is, intro and base controls is first, and then rigging a flexi spine. And then the third is head, neck, jaw, and eye. So those are the main subjects. But then I break it down even more. So for example, in rigging a flexi spine, I have the initial setup, and then how to model a proxy mesh, the flexi mesh creation, etc. Right? So by looking at that, you already know kind of what the topic is about, how in depth the person goes and creates that flexi spine in this case. And it's also helpful for you because you already, it's just a matter of just like start recording, and you already have all those names, so you don't have to worry about how to name a video. So the structure of your tutorial is already done. And in the first, in the intro base controls, you can see also an example of the intro and outro. So that I was talking about before. So just so that I'm clear about the importance of an outline, is that this structure right here, if I compare it to what my tutorial actually looks on, in this case, CG Circuit, it's basically one-to-one. You see there is introduction and base control, and then all the videos, they have the same name, and so forth. So that outline, once it's created, that is the time for you to switch things around if you need to. But then once it's done, commit to it, and that's going to become the actual structure of your tutorial, right? So super, super important. Do you want to add anything real quick to that, Stephen?
No, I mean, I guess our discussion's coming up anyway. I'd say in general, though, yeah, the outline is so important. And my outline, maybe because of the way I'm teaching, where I'm kind of building a scene up from scratch, is often like almost a pathway through creating an effect. Yeah, so it's definitely organized by category, but because it's also a series of things, and maybe just my teaching style, but I will often I want to build something, and sometimes I'll even like take you down the wrong path a little bit intentionally, being like, this is what you would think to do, and then back you up and say, and that's why you don't do it that way, and this is a way better way. So it's not even a linear path sometimes. It's I will build out my lesson in Houdini, and then I will then reconstruct it. And as I'm reconstructing it, I will chart the outline of the sequence of it. And yes, try to coalesce these things into categories and things like that, cool. Which typically happens anyway.
Great. Yeah, I asked you this not during the conversation because I think the outline is such an important thing that it needs.
For sure.
I can't stress that enough. So then next, after you're done with your outline, reference it with your tutorial planner, and try to ask these questions. from the list of my video, is it apparent the benefit of the use to the viewer, right? So make sure that those benefits are really, really clear, right? Even in the name, like in the name in which you name your videos and stuff like that. So the other one is, can I add or remove any topics that are useful or not so useful to my audience? So this is the time where you kind of like, okay, I forgot to do this because in my tutorial planner, I was really aiming at this, but in my list of videos, I actually don't talk about it. So make sure to add it. But if your videos they go into a tangent that really doesn't really pertain to what you want to try to be useful for with your audience, then remove it, right? Maybe you can make another tutorial about that specific things that you're removing. And also for each topics, write down. So when I say topics for each chapter, write down the things that people will be able to do after watching that section. This is also very important. So the other one, we talked about this, the outline is very easy to change. So you can change it at any time, and this is the time to change things. You do not want to change things during recording because that's a lot more work. And then finally, print your outline and keep it at your desk at all times. And what I do is that when I record, sometimes I go like, I really want to talk about this other thing that this video doesn't really cover. So I might add another video after the current video that I just recorded. So what I do is I actually go back to the outline and add that, right? So it's always in written form, so that at the end, again, your outline is exactly what you upload. All right, so I'm curious how you planned your tutorials.